Mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
What was the moment you realized that, okay, this technology was just another technology? AI changes what means to human, right? So it's going to actually have a drastic impact. So
we humans rule the future. We steer the future, not because we're the fastest or strongest creature, but because we're the most intelligent.
And for more on artificial intelligence and the controversy that surrounds it, we're joined here in Washington by James Barrat. He's a documentary filmmaker and author of the book, Our Final Invention.
My name is James Barrat. I'm a filmmaker and an author.
The demise of the human race or a golden age of innovation. James Barrat, who's author of Our Final Invention, a dystopian look at the future of machines.
We humans make mistakes. So this is a technology I don't think we're going to survive. Stephen Hawking said.
The primitive forms of artificial intelligence we already have proved very useful, but I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race.
He said it will make weapons that we don't understand.
who do you disagree with from a technological view standpoint?
Everybody that's not saying AI can really hurt us. Instagram was shown years ago to contribute to the suicide of teenage women. Let me say that again. Instagram was shown to contribute to the suicide of teenage women. Meta's own psychologist pointed this out to Meta, to all the leaders, including Zuckerberg, and they blew it off. They didn't change anything.
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week on Instagram. You knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator, this is why we're building all
Who did you fire?
tools.
We are trying to develop more intelligent agents, artificial or even general intelligence. Broadly look at the big four organizations who's actually controlling what happens in the AI world. It's again competing between each other in terms of bringing better AI models, which is much more super intelligent. How do you see that, right?
There are giant piles of money associated with AI. And it's funny because look at the growth of data centers. They're growing exponentially in size and in power. Because they can make a lot of money, they are. And it's come down to money over safety. Max Tegmark calls it a death race. 30% unemployment or more by 2030 across the board in every country.
If you made it this far, you're clearly into deep, meaningful conversations around health, lifestyle, and the science behind how we. 60% of people who watch these episodes haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these insights, my humble request is to please consider hitting that subscribe button. It will help us bring much more curious minds, expert voices, and keep the show going. Thank you.
First of all, I want to wish my wonderful audience a very happy New Year 2026. I'm genuinely thankful to all my audience for the support and your constant engagement with my content and the conversations I've put through in 2020. With all your support and encouragement, I have lined up much more interesting guests in 2026. So without further ado, let's deep dive into what's lined up for 2026 and what is this episode all about. This episode is all about something which is dominating every conversation, every domain, every technology across the entire world. Something we constantly hear about, something that's hyped at all times. Yes, you got it right. It's all about artificial intelligence, otherwise called AI. What if the most important question about AI is not what it can do, but what it's quietly changing about us? Have you ever thought about this perspective? Every generation changes the world with its tools, but this may be the first time our tools begins to change us. Today on Caffelogue with Naga, I'm joined by someone who has been thinking seriously about artificial intelligence long before it became fashionable or commercial. James Barrat.
My name is James Barrat. I'm a filmmaker and an author.
James is a documentary filmmaker and author who has spent years not just tracking the rise of intelligent machines, but asking a deeper question: what does this rise mean for us as humans? James first gained attention for his work exploring the risks and trajectories of superintelligent systems in his book Artificial Intelligence and the End of the Human Era, Our Final Invention. And his latest book, The Intelligent Explosion, looks at what happens when mission intelligence begins to outpace human intelligence across domains, not just technically, but socially, economically, and psychologically. What I appreciate about James' work is that he consistently asks not only what we can build, but what we should build, and whether our institutions, ethics, and emotional maturity are keeping pace with our technical abilities. Through his films and writing, James has been less interested in celebrating what machines can do, and more interested in asking what those missions might do to us, to our societies, to our institutions, and even our sense of meaning. That's exactly what his latest book, The Intelligent Explosion, explores: what happens when mission intelligence doesn't just assist us, but begins to exceed us, and what that means for humanity at a turning point in history. So without further ado, let's welcome James Barrat to our show. Pleasure to have you, James, today to my show, Caffelogue with Naga.
It's good to be here, Naga.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
I think what fascinates me with your journey and the book, The Intelligent Explosion, I have it here, when AI beats humans at everything. You've been a documentary filmmaker, and I think there's pretty interesting films I saw on Zika and Ebola. So you've written a book on suicide as well. So, being a documentary filmmaker to tracking AI. So what is interesting for me, or probably more fascinating, is you're looking at AI not from a technologist eye, but more from a storyteller trying to understand the consequences of the story we are writing with our technology, right? What was the moment, you thought, you realized that, okay, this technology was just another technology, that AI changes what it means to human, right? So it's going to actually have a drastic impact. So let's start from there. I would like to hear more.
I've acquired a technology background in the last 15 years. I've been stuck on this subject, and I programmed years ago, but not at the level that people are doing today with Python and AI, transformer models, all that. I made a film about the collaboration between Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke on 2001: A Space Odyssey. Clarke wrote the book, Kubrick adapted it to a screenplay, and then he filmed it. I interviewed Clarke in Sri Lanka, and that was really a fabulous day. But I was asking him about some of these questions because, 2001: A Space Odyssey had the HAL 9000, the homicidal robot. I was asking him about intelligence, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, we humans rule the future. We steer the future, not because we're the fastest or strongest creature, but because we're the most intelligent. When something more intelligent than us cohabitates the earth with us, it will steer the future. And that really stuck with me. So we were, as of that moment, I was waiting for something more intelligent than we are, because then I knew that, it was axiomatic that they would make the decisions. They would steer the future, as Clarke said. When I got that assignment, I immediately thought of interviewing Ray Kurzweil, because I'd read his book, The Age of Spiritual Machines, which I think is his best and most accessible book. And I remember I heard him on a radio show, and it was like a JF Kennedy assassination moment. I had to pull over to the side of the road because what he was saying was so astounding, and I really wanted to listen to it. And over the years, he's been proven more or less right in his technology prognostications. He closely tracks Moore's Law and then the things that have replaced it, and shows that by 2030, we should have, at the price of a computer, a mind as powerful as a human's in a machine. Basically, a laptop as powerful as a mind in a computer. And that was going to hit about 2030, and he's pretty much right on target. It might hit sooner than that. But that's when I got interested in it, maybe 2007, 2008. Once I started thinking about the existential risk, the risk to our survival, I thought, yes, that makes sense that it would be a risk to our survival, being more intelligent. And also, we're foolish and reckless with new technology. We are here by accident. We really were poised to eliminate ourselves as a species with a nuclear arms race. For 50 years, we had a gun at our heads with the Russians, or the Soviet Union then, and it's still there. We still have countries that have nuclear weapons. We still have a bunch of nuclear weapons pointed at us. It really could go off almost any time. And we humans make mistakes. So this is a technology I don't think we're going to survive. We survived fission miraculously, or we have so far. But AI, I think, is going to, once it becomes smarter than us, we'll almost by definition will cease to understand it, which reflects something that Stephen Hawking said. He said, it will make weapons that we don't understand. But it will, everything it does, once it gets smarter than us, how could we understand it if we weren't that smart ourselves?
Right.
And we're quickly, And anyway, I could go on and on.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. You also mentioned about I.J. Good quote about intelligent explosion in 1965 in the book. How you also thought. I mean, it says, I think you're referring to death of humankind. So yeah, I saw your statement in the first chapter of the book. I think it's pretty interesting, lens in which you have looked at artificial intelligence. I saw you're referring to in one of the discussions about your interview with Ben Godsell, as well, and from Google at that point in time, and it's amazing, I mean, the reason why this conversation matters is also about that moment, because you're very right in terms of your thought process from early 2000 to now in terms of, okay, what artificial intelligence or even a superintelligence could actually have an impact on humans, right? So maybe, and you have closely tracked that throughout the years. And earlier book is also like our final invention, artificial intelligence touches on that aspect of AI safety, AI governance, and as well, right? While I don't think so anybody has talked about it at that point in time. I mean, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you is actually, like, I was so fascinated because Jeffrey Hinton keeps talking about the existential risk and why research needs to be improved on that area for a long time. And I've not seen much any other people, while probably they may accept it in silos, but not really talking about it in the broader forum. So I think your work has been pretty compelling. So I wanted to really understand your perspective. My first question is, what surprised or scared you most while writing the book, right? Be it our final invention or probably the intelligence explosion. So maybe share your, probably you have done a lot of research, interviews, and understanding this, closely tracking the way AI is built. So maybe surprised or scared. What was your thought process?
Surprised and scared. Sort of a horrifying realization that I had back in 2009, 2008. But I've been talking to Eliezer Yudkowsky then. And Eliezer Yudkowsky worked at MIRI. I think he started it, co-founded it. He was writing about existential risk. And there were 2 or 3 people. There was a guy at Oxford that was writing about it, whose name I always fail to remember. He wrote the book Superintelligence. It came out a couple of years after mine. So people had thought about it, maybe for almost a decade before I did. I realized that we really needed to yell about it. We needed to get in a big public format and make a big fuss, because nobody was really paying attention to it. Back in 2010, you could see it coming. I mean, I could. I hate to be right all the time, but everything I said in our final invention has pretty much come true. I mean, we're in exactly that position where we're facing the intelligence explosion. And I wasn't the only one who thought that. I interviewed Ray Kurzweil twice in that period of time, and he acknowledged the existential risk, but he put it way down the line of probability, and he didn't worry about it. He was so high on the idea of living forever. That was the motto back then among singularitarians, which nobody says anymore. Singularitarians was live long enough to live forever, and I thought that was that bias was keeping him from seeing the cold reality of what was going to happen to us when we share the planet with something smarter than us. Some people still don't get it, but I'm happy to say a lot of really smart and influential people do. Max Tegmark at MIT, Future of Life Institute, Jeffrey Hinton, Demis Hassabis, and on and on and on. A lot of experts have now come around. People that weren't talking about this 10 years ago are now talking about it all the time. OpenAI talks about it all the time. Sam Altman, all the so-called godfathers of AI talk about it all the time, because they can see it now. They can see it coming, and these were the makers of it, the guys who created this technology. And so I think they're pretty good authorities on what should be scary, what we should be scared of. So how did I feel? I felt scared. We're standing on the train tracks. Why don't we see this damn train? Why doesn't everybody see it? And I think we're coming to see it now, but I think it may be too late to gin up any kind of salvation. It's coming too fast. There are a million reasons why we won't find a solution.
Right. I think, but not really. We are trying to develop more intelligent agents, artificial or even general intelligence, right? So how do the whole technology industry is actually competing against each other. So if you broadly look at the big four organizations who's actually controlling what happens in the AI world, it's again competing between each other in terms of bringing better AI models, which is much more super intelligent, than looking at why it's important to actually, devote much of time and funds for researching on the AI safety. So, I mean, how do you see that, right? I mean, why?
Well,
why is that?
There are giant piles of money associated with AI.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we're headed for an AI bubble because these companies are way overvalued, generally speaking. If you think exponentially, I mean, look at the growth of data centers. They're growing exponentially in size and in power. If you believe in the exponentiality of this technology, then the valuation is probably right to get ready for 5 years from now or 3 years from now. I often say they're way overvalued, but I'm not sure that's true. I like to sit down with a mathematician and really look at the trajectory of not just the technology, but all the polluting ways we sustain it through data centers. But what's happened is the money involved is spectacular, billions and billions. I think it was OpenAI made a deal with somebody else for $100 billion, which is almost inconceivable. They're looking at what target are we hitting in 3 years in terms of, can we be the first one to really max out all the processor power, max out the technology for powering these things, these architectures. And they're saying this is the right amount of money, but I still don't grasp that. But because they can make a lot of money, they are. And it's come down to money over safety. Max Tegmark calls it a death race. And he's right. He wrote a book called Life 3.0. And it's about, we're in a death race. We need to stop. We need to suspend development until we understand it. And there's the crazy thing is, if you look up any of the people I mentioned before, Hinton, Tegmark, Stuart Russell, they all say, besides the fact they say that this technology poses existential risk, they also say we don't understand it. And they mean that. They do not understand it. We know what the inputs are, the data. We know what the outputs are, clever sentences and music and pictures. And we know generally what's going on, but we don't know specifically what's going on at all. So when those guys, I urge your audience to Google sort of the Google unknowability or the something about the opacity of generative AI. And it's shocking. So we've got this technology that may kill us. We don't understand it, and we're developing it as fast as we can. What could go wrong? Everything.
Yeah. I think the model explainability is also something which everybody is looking at these days. So who do you most disagree with and why in your tracking of artificial intelligence? And right now, everybody's focused on AGI and ASI, as you mentioned in the book too. So during your research or probably your discussions, who do you disagree with from a technological view standpoint? Yeah.
Who do I disagree with?
Yeah.
Everybody that's not saying AI can really hurt us. The head of Meta, Zuckerberg, I couldn't disagree with him more. Not only is he blind to this idea, but one of their products, and this should just trip off my tongue. What's the Instagram? Instagram was shown to contribute to the suicide of teenage women. Meta's own psychologist pointed this out to Meta, to all the leaders, including Zuckerberg, and they blew it off. They didn't change anything. I think they might be paying attention now, but they use psychologists not to look at the safety, but to look at how they can entrap growing minds, young minds. So I disagree with Zuckerberg on basically everything he does. That's about it. That's the big names. But I'm tired of all the AI fanboys who just got on the boat when they saw that there was a buck to be made in generative AI. Everybody and their brother is coming up with a new generative AI architecture. A lot of them were just coming up with a shell and then using somebody else's architecture. That's what China did for a while. They're using, I think, Claude for a long time and calling it theirs. But I think they're doing original things now. Even Eric Schmidt, former head of Google, president of Google, used to be, you're overblowing this. You're people who are doomsters are making too much of a small percentage hazard. But now he doesn't think so. In fact, he's one of the more outspoken people about the possible dangers of AI, Eric Schmidt. And all these guys, the other thing is all these billionaires are investors. There's a fundamental incongruity between worrying about AI safety and getting rich off the technology that you're worrying about. There's a conflict of interest, to say the least. How can anybody who's got billions of dollars or millions of dollars sunk into these products, how can they be objective about the dangers? None of their arguments poo-pooing the dangers are reasonable.
I think it's a capitalistic world, and everybody is more of looking at the return on investment for their capital, not looking at the society, the impact to the society it's actually doing. I think there's a lot of plagiarism, there's much more, and even the creators. So how do you see from a creator's viewpoint, right? I want to hear from you, being a filmmaker and being in the creative world. With right now, there is no need for a designer or even a video editor or whatever. Like everything AI can do, a poetry, a song, whatever you want, name it. So how do you see that?
Well, they're ripping me off and virtually every other author, definitely everyone I know. Somebody there's a group that was founded in Holland, and they emailed me one day and said, by the way, your book, Our Final Invention, has been sucked up by ChatGPT. It's part of the training of ChatGPT. And they got a list of books from a curated database, and on it was my book. And so I'm going to join one of these lawsuits because they are ripping off not me specifically, but a lot of authors, a lot of visual people. In Our Final Invention, in the Intelligence Explosion, I write about a Dutch painter who I met virtually, and then I interviewed her, and she was doing album covers and then CD covers. That was her main thing, and then she'd do portraits of people, and then and she's became fairly well known. And then now you can go to ChatGPT and say, paint me a portrait of me in the style of this woman's name, and it will do it because it's ingested so much of her work. And people, especially guys and girls, or people that put out CDs, are creating their own covers instead of using her, but they're drawing from what they've stolen from the internet. And she's going out of business, or she's not really going out of business, but these billion-dollar companies are making creators bankrupt because there's no longer a need for their services, especially visual artists. I don't think any of the AI music I've heard is a threat to anyone. I think the writing is shockingly good. ChatGPT.
It's improved.
What?
No, it's improved. Yeah.
It really has. I don't think it can write a book yet, a good book. I think it can write a book. Unfortunately, I think Amazon's being flooded by AI fake nonfiction books, or just AI nonfiction books that aren't very good. But how does a consumer make a choice when there are too many choices?
Yeah, recipe books, a lot of cooking recipe books, all generated by AI. A lot of different nonfiction. Yes, that's true.
But it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to spot these AI books. They have a plainness about them. Yeah, they're very homogenous.
I think it's doing harm from a creator community without knowing it. But I think I'm also worried about the current generation of the upcoming, let's say school children or college, who is actually trying to be in the creative world. Then you do not have an authenticity of your own creativity because now everything is available in the internet. So what is unique to you? So it's kind of challenged, right? So if you write good, then there is, the app says it's actually from AI generated without even knowing that there is creative person can write better. So that's also a concern I see from a lot of my friends or the kids who are in the school who kind of write better, but when they flag with the AI tool and it said it's AI generated, but they literally got worried, hey, this is my own writing, but then there is this bias.
Yeah, there is a bias, and there's a bigger problem here, and that's that our kids are not going to know how to think. My kids are so distracted by their smartphones and by all the confections, all the dessert on them, they forget about the meal. They forget about how to think critically. And they're not being taught that in schools. I think teachers are giving up to some extent. My daughter, who's in her first year in college, is a critical thinker. She got out just in time. My son is not yet a critical thinker. And because he spends so much time on his phone, it's as if he and his friend group of 10 can't survive if they don't keep in touch like every minute of every day. Every time one of his 15 friends says anything, oh, I'm eating a hamburger, here's a picture, he has to respond. And it's an addiction. He is addicted. He can't sit with me at dinner without trying to get his phone out. I make him put it in another room. We did something smart, and I urge all parents listening to do this. A teacher told me my son was taking his phone out during class, and he was strictly prohibited from doing that. So we took control of it, and there's a way with iPhones, anyway, that you can put in a password, control the hours that the phone is in use. And right now, he can't use it during class time. And I think we're going to have to block out some time for homework, too. But we're fighting with these billionaire companies for the minds of our children. Cool. And that sounds like it might be overblown, but it's not. They don't write anymore. They don't read anymore. They don't think critically anymore. I ask my son about politics all the time, about economics, simple things. What do you think about invading Venezuela? What do you think about taking Greenland by force? And my son will say, well, that's all pretty crazy. And I'll say, yeah, thank God your brain is still working more than the president's. Yeah, it's a crime. And I think we're going to look back at this generation and go, this was even worse than TV, which they were worried about when I was a kid. TV was going to make us stupid. Well, it did make a lot of us stupid. We could have been a lot smarter.
I think most of that's what they call idiot box. But anyway, now
yeah. Well, this is the new idiot box. Yes, this is going to make idiots faster than anything.
The name, when they started naming it as smartphone, so I used to ask this question like, okay, the humans are smarter, but now the technologies are becoming smarter than the humans because your memory is taken for a toss. Now your brain actually is, having this constant dopamine because all these crazy shots and reels and everything is actually trying to, continuously be addicted to different varieties of content, not just one. That's also impacting the brain. And I see that the technologies are smarter. I mean, you can't remember more than 10 numbers these days because when I started, when I was in school, we didn't even have telephones, probably a landline at home. I don't think so. Right. We've had cell phones. So the first cell phone I got it when I actually started working. So
that's good. We'll look back at that and think of it as the golden age when kids could escape technology before it came down on their brains. You were lucky to get out. All we had was television, which was bad enough.
If you made it this far, you're clearly into deep, meaningful conversations around health, lifestyle, and the science behind how 60% of people who watch these episodes haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these insights, my humble request is to please consider hitting that subscribe button. It will help us bring much more curious minds, expert voices, and keep the show going straight.
Yeah, devastating, but I think the parenting becomes challenging. So now we can't blame the parents. It's the system. It's not helping them to even, so we can't let the kids go, let's say, completely deprived of the mobile phones, because that's also a safety concern, because if you have to reach them, but then the limitations of, controlling, it's also a challenge today. So that's a bigger problem.
Yeah, that's what my son says. What if I have to call you? And I said, you know what? Every one of your friends has a phone. Just take their phone.
Use that.
Yeah, use that. Call me on their phone.
Yes. Or from the office, the principal's office.
Yeah, go to the principal's office. Turn yourself in.
Office, yeah.
Turn yourself in and call me.
What's the biggest public misunderstanding today on AI? Right? So that's one thing which I want to hear from you, from your research and discussions.
That's kind of easy. It's something what we've talked about. I interviewed Jan Tallinn, who's from Estonia, and he co-invented Skype and Kazaa. And now, he's definitely worth talking to or interviewing. He's a fascinating guy, Jan Tallinn. And he said, the biggest discontinuity with AI is that a small number of people, the AI, are making decisions which affect everybody, and very few people understand the impact of their decisions. So to repeat that, a few people are making decisions that will impact us or could even destroy us. It's not that we disapprove, although many of us do. It's that most people don't know that these decisions are happening and what they are and what their impacts could be. Biggest thing. I mean, everybody out there should be concerned about AI and should educate themselves. And then they should vote for the people that have AI in their platforms, that are thinking about AI ethics, AI regulation. I mean, our country is way far behind in AI regulation. The EU is way ahead. Great Britain is way ahead. We're way behind because we have this guy in the White House that doesn't believe in any kind of regulation. And it's like feeding time at the zoo for Silicon Valley and the government. I mean, they're endangering us, and there's no checks and balances at all. So
it's
that's
terrorizing.
That's the biggest misunderstanding. I think people think that AI is it is a nice tool, but it's definitely a dual use technology, meaning there's pros and cons. It could lead to a wonderful future, or the trip could be short and ugly.
I think it's terrorizing thinking about it, listening to a conversation where I think it was not really officially told, but then the big four companies, if the CEOs are all discussing, the future is like they don't want humans to work in the engineering. Let's say you replace everybody with agents. You don't have to worry about healthcare costs. I mean, your insurance or even the overtime, because it can work 24 hours. You don't have to really look at all that legalities, right? So you kind of going into a dangerous situation that you kind of replace everybody with agents. So I'm not sure how that's going to look like.
It's going to look terrible because they're making no plans for the. There's no plan for what to do with the people who become unemployed. And it's not just, it used to be everyone was worried about factory workers and drivers, but now it's deep into the white collar work. It's lawyers. I mean, we've got too many of them anyway, but this is going to replace most of their jobs. Just virtually any job. It used to be, I'd talk to audiences and I'd tell kids not to do, college kids, don't take a job that involves repetition or rote memory, because they'll be taken by computers right away. And they are right now. We're talking about like 30% unemployment or more by 2030 across the board in every country. So that's very scary. And the people in charge are not doing anything to address it. I still think that people try to convince me otherwise, but I still think universal basic income is a pipe dream. I don't think that look at this. I don't hate to keep picking on the current administration. They're just a big, ugly target that's easy to pick on. But can you imagine this administration choosing to give people a universal basic income? Of course not. They would not do it. They would rather see people starve than give them something that they need. You know, in this country, healthcare is like it's
luxury.
A priority. It's a low priority thing for the government. I mean, most places don't pay for healthcare, but universal healthcare should be a thing, but it's not.
It's deteriorated, actually. It's going backwards.
Yeah. No, it's terrible. There are people that can't afford the medicines they need. A lot of people. I wrote a book about suicide and called Facing Suicide. I was in Denmark, which is interesting because now the White House is trying to beat them up over Greenland, which is just like, why don't we just become pirates and use our navy to rob every ship that comes by? Because they're acting like pirates. Taking Greenland, which has been in the hands of Denmark for 300 years, is just barbaric. But anyway, I was in Denmark and they had a mental health problem about 10 years ago, late 2000. It was like 1990s, and they changed their system entirely. In America, we have no hospitals that are suicide specific because it's a very specific thing to treat: suicide ideation, suicidal impulses. In little Denmark, which has only like 3 million people, they have 19 suicide hospitals because they had a problem. Now they don't have a problem. We have a much bigger problem per capita than they do. It's suicide is an epidemic here by the
mental health is an epidemic.
Yeah, health
every alternate person you see is having a depression or antidepressant.
More people kill themselves in this country than are killed by car crashes. More people kill themselves than are killed by murder, and we have a really high murder rate. So suicide is beating murder for the biggest body count, and it's really shocking. We're not addressing it at all. We're just dodging from it. It has a big stigma, so nobody wants to talk about it. Can you imagine a politician talking about suicide as part of their campaign? Suicide prevention? No, because it's a bummer. Why should we think about suicide? Well, we have a lot of people who are killing themselves every year, and every year it gets to be more. It increases every year. It was I think it averages around 45,000 every year. That's a lot. That's too many. And meanwhile, we're not taking any steps to really combat it.
I think it's important point you're making, but I don't think so. Nobody would talk about it in public. But while I see that there are a lot of mental health awareness is happening, but not really looking at the percentage of suicides, what you say, it's pretty alarming.
Yeah, that is. how do I choose my subjects? Because they're both pretty alarming. I mean, AI has an end game that is just ugly, and suicide is but suicide, my book, Facing Suicide, is about how to see the signs in your family members before it happens, how to see your signs in your colleagues and your schoolmates. The idea is to prevent suicide. And you absolutely can. No suicide is set in stone. Every suicide can be stopped before it happens. And
now you have this ChatGPT as well, like giving all the inputs.
No, it contributes to suicide. There have been several suicides. I mentioned Instagram and suicide in young women. It hasn't been a flood of suicides associated with generative AI, but there's been enough to be scared of it. There's also been a few homicides. One guy, his name was Jaswant Singh, broke into Buckingham Palace with a crossbow to kill the Queen, talked into it by his chatbot. More likely, he probably came up with the idea, and then the chatbot, in its affirming way, told him it was a good idea, and it wasn't a bad thing. Because if you spend any time with the chatbot, it never meets an idea it really doesn't like. It's now been trained to stop when you start asking it about murdering people or killing yourself. It's been taught to recommend suicide hotlines. The number for that, which, by the way, is 911.
So I think when you're talking about this, I have this question. What's more dangerous, like bad actors or good intentions moving too fast?
That's a great question. I don't think, I like all the scientists I've met who work in AI. They're all smart. They're all people with a lot of feeling. But there's this major discontinuity when they're creating this thing that could kill us all. It's like they would have to stop it. They would have to find another job, or they'd have to not get tenure, or they'd have to spend all their time talking about AI safety, which doesn't make any money. Those people, I think, are morally remiss. They need to be thinking about it. They need to be talking about it. If they don't know anything about it, they need to investigate it. If they're contributing to it, then shame on them. If they're contributing to it and not seeing the other side and not doing something about it, not helping educate people or directing people to resources, then that's negligent. It's I don't want to get too dire about that, but it's almost like being a gun maker. If you're a gun maker, you should spend as much time making guns. You should spend as much time educating people about guns and contributing to safer guns or safer gun use.
Yeah. That's also a bigger topic to discuss in this.
We keep stepping in these big topics.
Yes, that's true.
But, there are some analogies that we have. We have given up technology before. We don't, after people started developing recombinant DNA, they had the Asilmar conference in California to caution about DNA development, to set basic ground rules like don't track it out on your shoes, keep it in a secure environment. And everybody agreed to that. And some technologies we've given up entirely, like we're not supposed to be using chemical weapons or developing chemical weapons. Everyone's signed a treaty that says we won't do it. And so far, it's only been a few crazy people that have really used it a lot. And there are a few other technologies that are like that. We closely regulate nuclear energy and nuclear development because we know how dangerous it is. So we need something like the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. There should be that for AI, an IAEA for AI. The IAEA doesn't have many teeth. It has really very few recourses, or very few things it can do to penalize people who break the treaties about nuclear energy. But you need an IAEA that has teeth for AI.
I think you made a right point in terms of having a governance agency, but speed in which the technology is evolving, I don't think so. The agencies are coping up in terms of even the regulations are actually, coping up. By the time you come up with a regulation, the artificial intelligence is already faster and come up with some more new advancements, while you're trying to restrict something which is past. So is intelligence the risk or more of misalignment? Because we always want intelligence.
Well, intelligence is a great thing. I mean, everything around us in the world, the human world, is created by intelligence. So we have a lot to thank for it. We're not dying of diseases, although we might be soon. Vaccines prevent many serious, horrible diseases that used to plague, literally, the world just a few years ago. Apparently, some people in the White House want those diseases back. Maybe the population is getting out of control or something because they're trying to stop vaccines.
The Make America Healthy Again report, the latest one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They flipped the pyramid. Yeah.
Yes, they flipped the pyramid. I haven't looked deeply into that. I think steak and milk on the top is maybe a mistake. I think Kennedy I don't want to drag this into politics, but Kennedy is a crackpot. He's not a scientist. Anyway, I don't want to start commenting on everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Intelligence is definitely, we have evolved, we have developed, we have got a lot of technologies, but
Yeah.
I think misalignment or probably not really thinking about I think this is one technology, what I feel, what you've said, if I summarize is, we have got a lot of new inventions over, 100 years or more than that, but not any invention can actually run on their own, unlike artificial intelligence, where it can redesign or learn and then try to improve it on its own to get better. So I don't think so we've had any inventions which actually gets better on its own, which is dangerous.
Well, it's people keep you're absolutely right. People keep saying it's just like it's like nuclear weapons, or it's like any other thing that scared us. It's like the cotton gin. People recovered from that burst of unemployment. It's a failure to see the difference in category. This invention is the only one like it. When it becomes self-improving and can improve its own intelligence, that's the definition of the intelligence explosion. When developed by I.J. Good in 1965, when he was looking at one of the first neural nets developed by Frank Rosenblatt from MIT. And he said, when they achieve something like human intelligence, they'll be able to do everything we do with our brains. And one of those things is develop intelligent machines. So it will improve its own intelligence, and then that version of it will improve the next version, and that will improve the next version, and so on. So while human brains are chugging along at the same speed, the speed of AI advancement grows exponentially. If you can understand that exponential growth, then that should be enough to sober everyone up. And to look at the speed now, the speed 10 years ago, look at AI 20 years ago. Ray Kurzweil is very, very good at this, at these prognostications, looking at the development, looking at the curves. It's kind of harrowing.
AI in healthcare, I just want to pick your mind. Do you think, I see a lot of developments, and also it's helping disease control or probably finding new, interventions in terms of where traditionally we couldn't control. So how do you see that? Do you think there is a beneficial part of inventions from an AI standpoint, from medical advancements?
Yes, I think so. What I've read is that's one of the areas in which AI is uncontestably better than humans at things like diagnostics, at reading x-rays, at a few things. And it's definitely a plus. So this is the dual use nature of this technology. It's beneficial aspects and it's got destructive aspects. And it's very encouraging that there's there's also good robotics involved with surgery now.
Yeah.
That will just improve. And there's another job you probably don't want soon, and that's being a physician, except I don't think we're going to hand our kids over to robots or AI soon. So I think being a pediatrician is probably safe for the time being. And everyone needs to think about jobs they'll do when the AI takes their jobs. And I talk to students about this, that you need jobs that require things that we have uniquely, like emotional intelligence. It'll be a long time before we let first grade teachers be robots, or let robots teach first grade, because we don't trust machines enough to teach our kids from a young age. That'll probably go away pretty soon. But in general, being a counselor for kids and being a counselor in general uses capacities that AI doesn't have, that we have. And so far, they're uniquely ours. It'll be a long time before we develop AI with empathy or emotional intelligence. So look for jobs that require emotional intelligence, and don't do jobs that are already being taken by AI, which is virtually everything. Kids have to research this. I'm always shoving AI articles at my daughter. She's interested in business, and she's going to have to pick out a job pretty soon. I said, well, you and my son need to look into robotics, because robots are coming, and they're going to take every job. If you're as old as me, you've seen robots develop over the last 20 years. There's a robot everyone should Google called Shaky the Robot. It came out of, I believe it was MIT's Media Lab, which has been great at developing robots. Rodney Brooks developed that lab and went on to create iRobot, and he's a real groundbreaker. But yeah, Shaky was a marvel of technology at the time, but it just shook like crazy. And so it was called Shaky, but it was like groundbreaking technology at the time. So if you've seen that, and then you can see these robots that can do things, with their hands that are very dexterous. It's really amazing. They've come a long way in a short amount of time. And that's the nature of
robot, when they started, they couldn't open while they cannot shift to a different terrain if they're walking. Suddenly the terrain changes, or even opening a door and getting inside. That's a struggle. But now it can cut vegetables.
Right, without losing its metal fingers. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible how that's the exponential nature of technology. You see it developing, you go, oh man, this is a real yawn. It's so slow. And then boom, it hits the elbow of the curve and goes straight up. And then you see what we're seeing right now. Every month, and this is also a problem with the developers of AI, every month they release a new generative AI model. And we haven't caught up with the last one. So we have to adapt very quickly. And we have to take experts' advice for which GPT to use, which transformer model, which generative AI model. I think if they were smarter, well, there's such intense competition for the AI space in the AI space that's why it's developing so fast. And it's also because this technology has reached maturity finally after many winters, AI winters. But robotics, the marriage of AI and robotics is really going to be stunning. It's not stunning yet, but we're going to have very, very human-like robots in a couple of years. Imagine a robot with the fluency of language as ChatGPT, and you give it an instruction, and it turns instruction into words. It's instruction turned into action.
Actions.
That's it. Oh, such a big breakthrough.
Unimaginable.
It's also a great thing. If you ever read I, Robot by Heinlein, I think it was Heinlein. Somebody should look that up because I don't want to misquote it. But
yeah, I've heard it of it. I, Robot.
Is it Heinlein though? Is it Robert Heinlein? I should know that. People think, oh, we'll just follow the rules of iRobot. Well, the rules of iRobot were not intended to be real world applications. They were intended to generate fiction, to generate conflict. And every story in iRobot is a story about conflicts between misalignment between the humans and the robots. It's all about misalignment. Yeah. Everything is every application of the robots is an adventure in misalignment. The rules don't really work. The simple rules of iRobot. The issue is a lot more complicated than that, and we have failed at that. That's the one thing we had to do right before getting into smarter than human intelligence is solving alignment. But it's like solving the ocean. It's such a big, intractable problem.
Yeah, I think that's a long way to go. I still cannot trust the robot as a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't think so. The empathy and the emotional intelligence, as you talked about, is something which you can expect from a robot. But yes, I think people can say that the chats has been more improvised, but imagining you getting a consultation from a robot doctor, it's maybe just an initial screening is fine to eliminate time involved in the initial screening process, just to then send the right diagnosis to the doctors. Yeah. Human doctors.
Yeah, but I can see, in the age of spiritual machines, Ray Kurzweil wrote about advances in AI that would let AI experience something like feelings and emotions. And Kurzweil really took off with that idea. And it's not insane. It's just that most people, including me, can't see it from here. And it's not safe to turn yourself over to an AI psychiatrist yet. I mean, AI drives people nuts. That's what we know so far. So why would its psychologists be any better, or psychiatrists? But you can't see it from here. I remember I went to school near Charlotte, North Carolina, and that city was planned by maniacs. I don't know when it was. I don't think it was planned. It was just a city that sprawls outward. It's a beautiful city, but it's crazy to navigate. And I remember getting lost with a friend of mine in Charlotte at night, and we stopped at a place to ask directions. And the guy said, in total seriousness, you can't get there from here. He said, drive that way for 30 minutes and ask again. And that's the trouble with the future. You can't get there from here. You can't see it from here, like AI with emotions.
AI in healthcare, I just want to pick your mind. Do you think helping disease control or probably finding new interventions in terms of where traditionally we couldn't control? How do you see that?
Yes, I think so.
If you imagine two futures, one where we've got AI right and one where we didn't. So maybe if you can describe it in 30 seconds, narrating a documentary.
Despite everything I've said, I'm a big fan of AI.
If we didn't get it right, let's say looking at 30 years from now or like 50 years from now, how do you think dangerous the world would be? I still cannot trust the robot as a doctor. If you like this conversation, please hit the like, share, and the subscribe button to get the latest updates from my show Caffelogue with Naga. Thank you so much.